believe in the ripple effect.
What's up? Another episode of Ripple Effect Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Ricardo Brandes, also known as Ricky France, and this isn't just another episode. This is the 400th episode of the Ripple Effect Podcast. I'm very excited to get to this milestone. It's been an amazing ride, an amazing journey. I've made so many friends in regards to guests, fans, listeners, and I've learned so much. I've grown so much, and I think this has been just an amazing journey that I hope will continue for many more years. And hopefully with your support, eventually, by the time I get to the next 400 episodes, I'll be doing this full time. And there's no better time to support the show than now on the 400th episode. Show your appreciation if you can. If you can't financially support the show, don't worry about it. Rate, review, tell people about the show. That helps. That goes a long way. There's no act or no donation that's too little. And if you are in a good financial situation, consider donating via Patreon. We also have a PayPal account if you want to do a one-time donation. We have a crypto wallet for Bitcoin and Ethereum if you want to donate that way. We have a merch store, and I am releasing a new logo, a new lion shield crest type of logo that I'm really excited about sharing with you guys. And I want to give a shout out and a thank you to Johnny Larson, who is the artist who has helped take my last couple visions for merch logos and t-shirt designs and bring them to life. And if you're also a podcaster or a content creator or musician and you need an artist for a new logo or design, go in the show description, look for Johnny Larson's info, contact him, let him know you're a listener of the show, and he'll hook you up. Also, if you're a fan of my music, you can find that in the show description. You can also tip this episode or any of my episodes on Rockfin, which is a video platform, and just watching these episodes on Rockfin contributes to the show, so that's another way you can help. And then last but not least, check out the links to the University of Reason, which is Richard Grove's online courses. And if you want to learn more about the benefits of the courses, what you can learn from it, the community you can be a part of, and much more, check out episode 392, which I did with Richard Grove, and we go in depth about what the University of Reason is, what you get from the courses, who can help, and much more. So please check out those links in the show description. Also, I have a Telegram chat if you guys want to connect on there. The Ripple Effect Podcast is also now featured on Blast.video, which is Zach Vorey's new platform. Please check out Blast.video. It will soon also be on Iconic. It's on obviously Band.video. It's on Float. It's on Rumble. It's on BitChute. It's on many different places. You can find all this and much, much more on the RippleEffectPodcast.com. Enjoy episode 400. It's with my dear friend and one of the amazing people I have gotten to know and gotten close with throughout the years of podcasting, Dr. Jessica Rose. She's one of the most fascinating people I've ever met. It's truly a blessing to be able to meet and connect with people like her all over the world and be able to call them my friends. I've never had a conversation with Jessica that I haven't loved, but this is definitely one of my favorites, so I'm sure you guys will enjoy this. And one last thank you to everyone who has spent their hard-earned money on investing in the Ripple Effect Podcast, people who have purchased merch, people who have sent donations, people who have signed up on my Patreon page. I truly, truly appreciate it. Also, everyone who has spent some of their valuable time writing reviews, rating the show, or sending me super nice messages from the bottom of my heart. I truly, truly appreciate it. And I can't thank you guys enough for giving me that little bit of motivation, inspiration, which is sometimes necessary. You guys give me the energy to continue going and keep fighting. So thank you so much, guys. Enjoy this amazing conversation. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace. Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. Wow. Sorry about how I look. I'm not always beautiful.
Well, thanks for being with me. I appreciate it. This is it's funny how this turned out because I kind of lost track of my shows and the numbers, and I'm like, I know the 400th episode's coming up, but I'm like, I have so many emails in circulation about like booking shows that I'm like, I don't know which episode it's going to be. And it was actually supposed to be Dr. Judy Mikovich. She was supposed to be on this before you, and then we had to reschedule. And then there was a lot of like just kind of turning of or messing around with scheduling with myself and guests. And then I'm like, oh my God, it's gonna, because I'm like, first I'm like, oh, I think it's gonna be Jessica, which would be perfect. And then I'm like, wait, it's Judy. I'm like, you know what? That's not a second option. And then once she's canceled, I'm like, actually it ended up working out. So this is the 400th episode, and it's kind of
Wasn't there the 100th too?
What's that?
Was I the 100th episode too, or am I thinking of something else?
I'm trying to think. Where was one of the other episodes also like a little milestone? Well, I don't think that I've done 300 episodes since the first time we talked. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the math that doesn't add up. So I must be thinking of something else. But yeah, I love even numbers. Awesome. I love your hair too.
Thank you. I guess. I did recently get a haircut, so
yeah, no, it's good. I was thinking about doing the same kind of thing, like just going a little bit more punk.
More punk, yeah. Punk's always good. I like punk. It's funny. My kids and we've been going back and listening to some old songs that I used to like, and I'm just like, I don't know. We're
like Ministry.
Well, not some Ministry, but like Dancing. A little bit of the Clash, a little bit of like just like weird stuff that I'm like, I haven't listened to AFI, like old stuff that I haven't. Well, obviously AFI is not as old as the Clash, but some older stuff that I haven't, that I kind of forgot about a little bit, And it's funny because I was listening to Eddie Bravo on Sam Tripoli's show recently, and he was talking about his new podcast, which I think he's calling it Look Into It, and it's going to be on Rockfin, and he was talking about how he's going to share a lot of music that weren't songs that most people would probably know, but were huge for him, and like it had a huge impact on him. And it's funny how like so many of us have those type of influences, right? Like those things that maybe to the average person doesn't seem groundbreaking or really revolutionary, but for some reason we connected with it, and it had some huge impact in our lives. And I guess it's not just music. I mean, just individuals. You look at like certain people growing up that might have gave you a piece of advice, or individuals that said something to you. You had a heart to heart with them, and it stuck with you forever. And it's like you never really know what those things are. And I'm curious if in the moment, if we even know that it's gonna, because I've thought about it too. I'm like, I wonder, like now as an adult, if I have one of those conversations, maybe I'm better at like knowing that like, oh, this is going to be a conversation that's going to stick with me and impact me forever. Or maybe I'm not going to know it at the time, and then I'm going to reflect and look back and think like, oh my God, like I didn't even know how influential or how thought-provoking that the was at the time. Does that make sense? Sometimes I'm just ranting on, and I'm like, I'm trying to put my thoughts into words, and I'm like, I'm not sure I'm doing the correct job or doing my thoughts justice.
No, absolutely. I was just wondering if I could bore everyone, although it's not boring at all, with some lyrics. Speaking of like old school, awesome, before their times, timeless people, like Jello Biafra. Do you know Jello Biafra, Dead Kennedy's lead singer? He teamed up with Nobody Snow. Can I read some lyrics from it's a song called There's Too Many Sharks in the Gene Pool.
Yeah, absolutely.
You won't believe, like, I knew that okay, No Means No is a Canadian punk band that was like, I still am like the most hardcore No Means No fan that ever existed. They got pretty big. They used to tour Europe to sell out shows, and they would team up with like pretty well-known artists like Jello Biafra. So it's called Sharks in the Gene Pool. First the urine test, now this. First the urine test, now this. Why do all the best technology advances always wind up in the worst possible hands? Through DNA analysis, we may one day conquer disease, a perfect baby every time by mapping and manipulating people's genes. Cosmetic surgery before you're born, no advance what you'll die of. Everyone is useful and the same. Swimmers bred like horses for Olympic teams. Life insurance, be serious. You have to get your genes screened first. Toxic chemicals, fumes at work, no sweat, get a gene transplant. Otherwise, you'll lose your job. Do you want to wind up out in the streets and raise your children in campgrounds and shelters and beg to eat? There's too many sharks in the gene pool, too many chewed up bodies on shore, too many sharks in the gene pool, too many leftovers rolling all around us. No, it gets better. First the urine test, now this. Why do the best technological advances keep winding up as uniform hybrid species? For fresh looking pest-proof food, an apple can sit on the shelf for years when we irradiate the molecules. Where did the nutrition go and what's taken its place? Slipshod tampering with science, out of control factory farm eugenics, slaughterhouses in Iowa filled with tumor-infested cows, failed experiments hidden till sold to your local school lunch program. Grade D, but edible, our food, our life, our attitude, suffocating, and we refuse to recycle. Time bombs fester in every town. Billions of dollars spent every year searching for a cure for cancer. Why not spend that money instead to wipe out pollution that causes the cancer? There's too many sharks in the gene pool, too many screw-ups washing on shore, too many sharks in the gene pool, too many preventable accidents among us. Last verse, where did American know-how go? Why do Japanese build better stereos? Is it because our best minds can't get a job, except when they help make toys for the Pentagon? Germ warfare, more bombs, our whole economy's based on fear and death. How long can we get away with this? And we live here. Instead of better health, we get AIDS. Instead of nourishment, we get steroids. The most popular selections at celebrity sperm banks are sports heroes. Gap widens between the haves and the haves and the have-nots. Rich and powerful breed only with themselves. We all know what happens when too much of that happens. The offspring they pop out just ain't real bright. How else can you explain the erosion of talent and the vision thing to the point where the best that they can come up with for our future role models and leaders are vicious blind machines like Albert Gore and Dan Quayle? Why do the best solutions and advances get thrown away in the worst possible hands? I'll stop there. It's just so good. This guy wrote this in the early 80s. Think about how telling that is. And where are the musicians writing lyrics like that right now?
There's some, what's funny? It seems like most of them are from the UK for some reason. I don't know if it's because of just the understanding of history a little better, because I feel like in America, our history that we're taught, and I'm not actually from, I wasn't born here. I'm a foreigner myself, but so I can kind of see from both perspectives where it seems like American history is kind of the focus here, and American history is very small compared to like human civilization history. So when you look at like Europeans and they go, they're learning history and they're going back further, they can see the trends a little better because they've seen it kind of, it's like that saying, history doesn't always repeat, but it rhymes. So you can kind of see the similarities. And you've seen tyranny over and over again. You've seen the historical evidence that basically as long as there's been people, there's been rulers who want to rule them. And you kind of learn from that, where like the American, I feel like the American story, at least the way it's taught to you, it's almost like The Notebook, right? The movie, like it's one of those things where it's like, that's a beautiful story, but I'm not sure it's realistic. Like that's probably unlikely, it's and it's kind of like the American story is kind of similar. It's like we get this idea of like this is history. Like we fight for freedom when and we won. Like we have liberty, we have freedom. We've detached from the monarchies, and it's like, well, it's not that simple. And if you go back further, you see how eventually things will repeat. And even in a country where it's founded, you know, many Americans would say, which is founded on freedoms and liberty and freedom of speech and stuff, you can see how slowly that decays and goes away. So I have some lyrics. It's funny, I just looked for them because I haven't. This is like one of the last songs I wrote myself.
Oh, cool! Nice.
It was a song that it's actually, I believe it's a song that goes from my intro, after I do my little intro to the actual interview, and the song's called Eteria, which just means the theory. And it's kind of, I was a very like deep into philosophy when I wrote this, but I just figured if we're sharing lyrics, I don't think I've ever read this online.
When did you write it?
I'm trying to think. It's probably old. I would say it was before I started the podcast, so it must be. I mean, I started in 2013, so I mean, it had to be like 2000. I don't know, 11, 12, something like that. So it's fairly old, but the lyrics have always been like, I've always liked the lyrics to the song. And the weird thing is, like, sometimes I find myself, and you know, as a musician yourself, you probably been through a similar thing, or you know, if anybody who writes poetry or whatever, sometimes I write things and I don't realize the metaphor even in the moment, right? And then afterwards I go back and reread it, and it's almost like I am reading somebody else's lyrics and finding out what they truly meant when they wrote it, even though it was me. And I'm like, I had a deeper understanding when I wrote it than when I reflected on it. And then it took me time to kind of reflect on it and really understand what, but I think a little bit was because of when I wrote and why I wrote. So a lot of times it was, and I think this is why the artist perspective on things is so unique and very similar to one another. Like if you look at artists, I think you're tapping into something deep, and you're trying to better understand things, and you're trying to maybe deal with trauma or issues or some internal emotional thing. So you're very in tune with that. And so I think sometimes you're dealing with something maybe even in the subconscious that might come out in words that you would never be able to deal with if you didn't attempt to get there. You know, like I would purposely try to put on the saddest music possible to try to get myself in the right mindset.
I used to play music to make me cry, and I didn't really know why, but I thought, okay, maybe I need to cry. Okay.
Well, I think we do, right? We need to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, emotions are like one of the most neglected. You know, so it's funny. Like this is where like you get the opposite extremes, and I think both can be dangerous, right? Like you're too emotional, right? And it's like everybody should wear a mask and everybody should get vaccinated because I feel like that's the right thing to do. And then you go to the too logical approach where it's like, logically none of this makes sense. I just look at things logically and I just look at the facts, and they're completely neglecting the fact that if you're human, emotions have some effect on your decision making and how you look at things. So it's like, you know, both are kind of wrong in some sense, and you have to find some happy medium. And so I'll read these lyrics real quick because I'm actually I haven't even read them in a long time. So this song's called Eteria. It's my music project called Theory 6. So I'll start with the beginning. So the familiar turns strange, empathy to pain, self-reflection may kill me. Moral reasoning creates a unsettling debate. Doubt has invaded everything. Submit to reason, let the mirror reflect. In this isolation, I begin the process. Intrude identity, my innocence lost. This can never be undone on thought. Saved and enslaved by a prophet man-made, illustrating the world at my expense. Deaf and blind by a plagued mind, carving out the mold until the image makes sense. Submit to reason, let the mirror reflect. In this isolation, I begin the process. Intrude identity, my innocence lost. I can never be undone on thought. And then basically it just a little part at the end. You will remember my words. They will change the world. I will they will call me the second coming. They will call me the theory. That was a little arrogant of myself to, to say that. And then
I like it.
And then at the end it just says eu não posso morrer, I can't die and leave nothing behind. So you know, kind of it's funny kind of going back and reading lyrics and just thinking like, okay, where was I mentally and emotionally and intellectually when I wrote that, you know? And then it's kind of like a little time.
I want to hear it to music.
Yeah, I'll send you the link to the actual song. It's one of my heavier songs, so it's a lot of screaming.
Nice. That seems like it would be appropriate.
Yeah.
I have I'm trying to I want to read you something too, but I probably won't be able to find it. Some words. It was kind of like a track that I was working on with my sister at one point, but it just kind of fell on its face and never made it anywhere. But the words were pretty good. I'm never gonna be able to find it. Never mind.
Well,
Maybe for the next one.
yeah, if you do, so she's a musician also, your twin?
She was like a DJ, like with vinyl, like back in the day, and she's more like the poetic writer of her and me, and I'm more of the like the music creator, I suppose. You know, if one of us was better at something, I think the music is for me and the writing definitely for her. She's really good at taking what's in here and putting it here. Like I'm getting way better actually. The Substack experience has really helped evolve my writing, like to bring what's in here out there quickly, because that was always my problem. It's like it wasn't happening fast enough, so there would be too much lost in translation, and then I would overthink, and by the time, you know, it got from here to the screen or the paper, it wouldn't be what I was thinking at all. So it's like, what's the point? So I'd get frustrated, and yeah.
Well, that was my problem with music, because when the band, so my twin brother, so my twin and I, we played in a metal band. Well, it was kind of like inspired by like new metal and industrial and other types of metal, but it was basically, you know, a different type of a metal band. And then when we broke up and I started doing music on my own, it was just it was so time consuming, like to write the lyrics, come up with like a melody, come up with a you know, just a drum beat, keyboards, everything, and then record everything and produce it. It's like it took forever to do things on my own. And then sometimes like the thought or feeling that I was trying to capture and share with the world, like by the time the finished product was ready, I was like over it. And I'm just like, you know, it was just like, okay, you know, it just took way too long. Where podcasting, it just seemed like a much easier, quicker satisfaction, right? Like it's just real quick. You have a conversation, you can attempt to get your thoughts out, and then I'm like, I got that idea out, you know, and then I'm happy and I can move on to the next idea. So it's a little bit more rewarding, a little quicker. But one thing I kind of miss about writing, but I find I'm getting similar experiences being interviewed or just having conversations, is just spending some serious time getting into deep thought and questioning things. And you know, that's what I loved about writing. You feel like you're getting something off your chest, but you're also analyzing the hell out of your thoughts and how you feel. And I think most people just don't spend that much time doing that. And you know, that's, I think we talked about this before, like people say if you type out an email or you type out a text message, a mean email or text message, you just type it out and you don't send it, you'll feel better even though you didn't send it, and just because you typed it out. And I think you know, doing that sometimes, just getting it out on the paper or getting it out in some way is beneficial. I mean, I also think exercise, there's so many different ways of handling these internal you know, issues and stuff like that, but some people go their whole lives without handling any of it, and that's why they have short fuses, and they're unreasonable, and they're unwilling to be open to other people's perspectives. So you know, that's the issue too.
Yeah, no doubt. I guess this episode is going to be all about music then, hey?
I mean, it all kind of intertwines, right? Like we deal with music, or I think music came from some type of, I mean, it's weird, the origin of music, right? Like you think people were dancing before there was really any instruments or making noises with sticks or whatever it may be. and so it's like we have some type of internal rhythm. There is that interesting music conspiracy. Have you ever looked into that? The whole
No.
what the I'll have to look it up and send it to you. There's a couple of good documentaries on it about how they they kind of, there's something about the tone of music that they simplified to kind of prevent us from like exploring mentally or
Oh, yes, I do know what you're talking about. Right. Yeah, I saw that a long time ago. Yeah, I'm really, really getting interested in not just that kind of thinking with regard to music, but with regard to everything, even water itself. But yeah, the idea of thinking about us dancing before there was music, I don't know, I find that hard to visualize, because like there's music everywhere, like everything, like the wind and pine trees to me is music. It's not like a beat, it's not pulsing, but it's definitely like a distinct sound that stirs emotion. So for me, that's what music is. It's freaking everywhere. Like and like, think about the animals. Like, have you ever heard a grouse thumping, like doing this thumping noise that they do? They go thump, 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 thump. So it's a really cool sound. And chirping frogs, like everyone's making this like percussive music all the time. So it's like, yeah, wow.
well
We're sorry.
no, go ahead.
I'm just gonna say we're like, all we are vibrating, like, beings made up of other beings, somehow hopefully synergistically living with all the other vibrating beings. Yeah, I don't know, it's weird. What are we?
Well, those are the deeper questions I love. I just did a podcast with the Generation Z guys, and I was interviewed on their show, and they're so fascinating, and just these type of deeper conversations. And then also I had Brandon Thomas on my last episode that I released with he's the host of the Expanding Reality podcast, and we went like deep into these type of questions. And I'm kind of like, now that COVID is like, I feel comfortable not feeling like I need to help red pill the world, every podcast and just get this information out there because it's being censored and it's affecting people in a negative manner. I feel more comfortable diving deeper and spending my free time going into other topics that I'm into again. And I've been like really deep into like philosophy again. And I've always loved philosophy because it's more questions than answers. Like, it's just literally, since the beginning of philosophy, it's just people asking the same questions and having different perspectives. And like you said, you're diving into your perspective on water. I was thinking about this today when I was at the gym, like just kind of between sets, kind of just letting my brain go wherever, which I usually do. And I was thinking about how, like, there's a couple philosophers I've been like really digging deep into, Michael Millerman and Alexander Dugin, and I got exposed to their work from this past Greek guest that was on my show, the host of the On Tyranny podcast, which is a name based on Leo Strauss's a book on tyranny, but really fascinating guy. And he kind of exposed me to these other philosophers. And like, so this idea of like, so Alexander Dugin's like one of the most banned philosophers, and he doesn't represent anything. He just represents some ideas. And I don't know how ideas can be dangerous.
And he's banned?
What's that?
And he's banned? How does that work?
Banned off YouTube. His Twitter account's banned, and he's a Russian philosopher. Some people call him Putin's brain. That was like his nickname because he was very close to Putin, and Putin was very fascinated with his view on the world and his philosophies. And but like, so he questions things, right, which is like right down my alley and goes against the grain. And one thing I've always thought about, right, and I talked to you about this, I think some episodes ago, about how, I don't know, maybe this was before or after Tom Cowan. We had that episode with Tom Cowan. But like, so if I went to school to learn philosophy, right, like I would learn, Plato, would learn Socrates. I would learn like all the bases, right? And then the way they think would be, I would adopt the way that those questions and the way they look at the world, and I'd be like, oh, this is the foundation of philosophy. So then it was okay for me to question everything afterwards that has not yet been questioned by those godfathers of that field. But nobody ever goes back and questions the godfathers of the field. So same thing with science, right? Like we have, you go, you learn biology, you learn whatever it may be. There's a theory that is adopted by the majority, and then you learn that theory, and then everything you learn afterwards doesn't go against that theory. It builds on that theory, right? So
exactly. That's what I'm looking into now. It's like, what are these goalposts that we have accepted along the way, and on what basis were they accepted? That's what I'm interested now, because like, what makes the central tenet or dogma of biology what it is, like DNA, RNA, mRNA, and then protein? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, I it's not that I don't accept it. It's just, like you're saying, it's like, why were these particular, nodes chosen as the consensus? You know what I mean? Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you're just expanding on my exact thought. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like those are the things that so this is where, not to get way off track, but like the flat
get off track. I love it.
Let's just go everywhere. So the flat earthers, right? That's where I kind of see why they're so passionate about their views, because I'm like, I kind of get it, right? Like if we can have a whole world that a small majority prior to 2020 was skeptical about the safety and effectiveness of vaccines, and they brainwashed the whole world to never question a vaccine ever, to the point that even when you put a experimental vaccine that's never been used before in human history on the market, they are so brainwashed that vaccines are safe and effective, that only because it's in a syringe and they've been told that vaccines are safe, they accepted that one is probably safe too. And that's all like from years and years and generations of telling you, like, vaccines is why we don't have polio, vaccines is why we eliminated this disease and that disease. They're safe, they're effective, everybody gets them. Any the people who question it are lunatics or whatnot. And so I can see how, if you can pull that trick, right, and you, then why, like, what trick could not be pulled, right? Why, like, especially that are unimprovable, right? Things that are like, okay, I've never been to space, I'm taking somebody's word for it. NASA, which was founded by what's his name, Van Buren, the Nazi German who was a part of their rocket program, and not a very, like, he wasn't one of those guys that, like, I don't buy in, I'm just working for the government type guy. I mean, he was known for hanging the slowest working Jew in front of his office. And then Operation Paperclip were like, hey, I know this guy should probably go to jail. And then,
we'll just make him a president.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll bring him over. He'll start our NASA program. And that's it. And then it's also made me rethink, like, so how, like, the guys who went on the moon, all those astronauts, when they came back, the really, like, interesting press conference, the one that, they all look like they just saw a ghost, like they weren't excited, and they were like, they just seemed like out of it. And what if some people think it's because they were lying to the world, but what if they were lying to the world? They found out for sure that they're like they did go out of outer space and find out, like, the earth was flat or something, and they're lying to the world about everything. And then and the thing is about every conspiracy theory is that there's little tidbits of really interesting historical truths that you can learn, even if you go down the rabbit hole of the most craziest conspiracy theory. Like, you go down the rabbit hole of the craziest conspiracy theory, there's some type of historical evidence that keeps it alive,
whatever historical evidence is. I mean, even that's questionable.
Yeah,
it's so funny you're talking about the moon, because I presented at the latest FDA hearing 2 nights ago, I think. And they call you on the phone, and I don't have a phone, I have this. And so it's like, screaming into a tablet. And I don't know if you heard it, Ricky, it's on I made a Substack, but it literally sounds like I'm the guy, one small step for man. Like it sounds, my sound quality is worse than that one. So I'm sending it to people and I'm like, one small step for Jess. And that gets me thinking, right? I'm like, because I don't think about this often, but whenever I think about the moon landing, I'm like, how the hell do I know anyone actually made it to the moon? And why is it even a thing that people question that? And they have so-called evidence like flags waving in in a vacuum of space. Like with you know what I mean? It's like, why is it a thing that people are questioning that if there's no value in the fact that they're questioning it? And it's like, I agree with you. It's like everything comes from somewhere. And I'm not saying that somewhere has truth, but it's like, we talked about the flat earth thing before. Like, I find it fascinating that there's an entire like a subpopulation of people who find that idea valid. And I really wonder if they're not tapping into something that the rest of us aren't able to tap into, and they're more aware of the fact that we're actually living in a simulation that has like edges. We talked about that before, I think. And so yeah, I for all I know, this is a simulation. And if it was, like, if this is just a really good virtual reality world, we would be in some kind of virtual space, which would have borders, which might mean that the playing field is a flat plane, which could be what they're tapping into. You know what I mean? So it's like,
I was just going to say spirituality comes into play too, because it seems like the bigger question, because I always like to know the why, right? Like I ran into like this Peter Thiel.
People are bored.
What's that?
Sorry, the overlords are bored. Let's make a new video game. Let's make all the humans into a battery and see what we can do.
well, flat earthers, they have this idea that, and in a way, I kind of subscribe to it, that so if you look at like the traditional way of looking at space and stars and the universe and our solar system, we look kind of insignificant, right? We look like it was happen chance. It was just like we got lucky that all the right elements came together, and next thing you know, there's life on this planet because of water and all the right ingredients to kind of create this planet.
But why the consciousness then? What's the point?
Well, that's where the flat earthers go, right? They think that that's the reason, because everybody always asks, like, why would they lie about that, right? Well, and to me, that's always the most fascinating question. It's like, okay, I get, you can give me all your scientific evidence, if there is any, and you can give me all your scientific evidence, and I can look at all the facts and kind of come to a conclusion on what I think. But the bigger question is why. Like, to me, is like, why would they want to do this? And if you start diving deep into the why, then maybe it seems more probable or possible, or it starts making more sense. And this idea that, like, okay, we're not just a planet that goes around the sun and we're insignificant. We're actually, the sun hovers around us, because the way they look at it is like, you look at a table and then you have the continents on a table, and then you take a flashlight and you go around, in a circle, clockwise or whatever. And then, that's why it's light in one place and dark on another place. And so this idea that, like, we are significant, we are special, so this, like, a lot of flat earthers, and not to put words in their mouth, because I know that they're quite sensitive with their views, but a lot of them have this bigger view of humanity, that we're something special. And the reason why we were told that we're this insignificant thing is because they don't want us asking those bigger questions. They don't want us diving deeper into what it's all about, and these universal questions that have been asked by philosophers and thinkers since the beginning of man. They want us to just kind of think like at surface level, like material level things, and just not ask those deeper questions. And I kind of, you can see that reflections of that in so many other aspects of the world. I mean, when you look at like a lot of people, when they look at liberalism today, you know, or progressiveness today, this, you know, it's, you know, like they feel like they're trying to kill the family unit. They feel like they're trying to kill culture, and they're trying to force their culture onto you, and they're trying to change a lot of wisdom and things that people have been a part of, and you know, just cultures and countries and people been a part of for a long time. And they're trying to like almost eliminate all that by having like a universal way of thinking, like, oh, everybody should be progressive, everybody should be this way, everybody should be that way. And
Yeah.
and so you can kind of see like this idea of like, okay, you take the uniqueness out of people, and you take the uniqueness out of cultures, and it's like, why can't we just celebrate them instead of looking at them like they're, you know, I always reference this debate because it's a good example of it. There's supposed to be a Swapcast friendly podcast between Sam Harris and Dan Carlin, the host of Hardcore History, and then it eventually turned into a debate. And one thing that Sam Harris has a hard time understanding is that maybe people who grow up in Muslim cultures don't feel like they need saving from their own culture. So when you're saying like we need to go there and free the women from having to cook and clean and or whatever it may be, I can understand the argument of like, you know, of this idea that like, okay, maybe they grow up in a world, in a culture where women don't have as many rights, and maybe that's why they're okay with not having as many rights, because it's just what they've accepted. But if they've accepted it, and that's the culture they grew up in, who are we to say that it should be changed? And even the ones you're saving might resist because the fact that that's what they know and love. I mean, it's no different than saying like, hey, in Asia, we don't like some of the foods they eat. Let's go there and tell them like, hey, you know, like you shouldn't be eating cats or dogs, or you shouldn't be eating pigeons, or you shouldn't be eating whatever, you know, whatever weird food that, you know, not weird to them, but weird to the West. You shouldn't be eating that. Let's save them. They just don't know that you could eat pork and bacon, and you know, it's like, or let's push bacon on the Muslims because they're just brainwashed and believing it's bad for you, or it's not good, or it's a, you know, it comes from a animal that they shouldn't eat. Like, it's like, no, it's their culture. And it's funny because I heard Alexander Dugin say this, the Russian philosopher, and he's so right. It's such an interesting perspective. He's like, there's nothing more racist than pushing your culture onto somebody else, because you're not just pushing your culture on another culture, but what you're doing is you're actually trying to destroy their culture. And you know, what's more racist than that, right? Like than pushing somebody's than eliminating and destroying somebody else's culture. And
I feel that way about individuals. Like that's why I hate all this COVID bullshit so much, because it's like and this it also spins off what you were just saying. The thing about the Muslim culture, the difference between, not in every country, but the difference between what the men get and what the women get as par for the course. The problem I have with that is are the women who don't want that life, and then therefore they don't have a choice anyway. So and I'm sure there are many who might want to choose a different way of living, but again, it's like it's all about the individual. And I always wonder from the philosophical point of view, what's with that anyway? I always find myself thinking, what power do we women have that seems to be so threatening that we have to be kind of put in a cage and contained? That's kind of how I perceive it. It's like, I'm not saying anything judgmental, I hope, but it's like I don't know, it's like the attempt to try and contain anyone, any individual. I don't care if you're a male or a female or whatever. It's like that's the part that bothers me about like just I don't know, everything about human beings and their like segregation by culture, religion. So I'm not even sure like how I feel about religions yet. I'm not saying they're not important for some reasons, but like, I can't stand all this like segregation crap, because there always seems to be this idea that like we're better than you, even country by country, religion by religion, and it's like, says who, yeah, I just feel like, it always circles back to the individual. And it's like, if we don't let ourselves and others like be who we are, we're creatives. That's what human beings are, for whatever the hell reason. We're creatives, and we have this like ability to, I think we have so many abilities that we are not aware of. And I mean, I don't know why or how it's suppressed, but this water thing that I've been looking into is really interesting. I'll mention that after, but it's like, we're capable of like so much. If our species just imagine if we all came together as the best versions of ourselves that we could be, how amazing the planet would be right now. Like, think about if everyone was as good as Buckminster Fuller was as doing what he did, this architect. Like, imagine that. We would have these structures and renewable energy, and there wouldn't be this stupid concept of money. There wouldn't be this power, weirdness and these egos, and like, wow, I envision such a beautiful world when I think about that. Just this elimination of segregation by whatever culture, creed, landmass. The whole thing is bizarro world to me. But yeah, have you ever heard of deuterium water?
I feel like I've heard the term, but I've never like looked into it.
So yeah, it's brand new to me too. I'm in this like committee of smart people on on Thursday nights, which I missed yesterday. Sorry guys. I was passed out asleep. And one of them, Stephanie Seneff, you probably had her on your show, right?
I don't think I have, but maybe I should.
You should. She's a genius. Like, really a genius. Anyway, so I don't know, sometimes we just shoot the shit on this call. Like, we're not necessarily talking about COVID crap. So we're talking about like, someone will say, hey, what's that you're drinking? You know what I mean? Because we're all like different parts of the world. She's in Hawaii, and she always has this like gorgeous mango colored drink. And her friend has some kind of fruit orchard and makes these like dried fruit roll-ups. And then we started talking about mushrooms and lion's mane. And then we started talking about deuterium water, which she knows everything about. And I'm like, what is that? So it's heavy water. So instead of two hydrogens, there's a deuterium. So it's literally like a greater mass. And apparently it's not so good for living things and DNA. It impairs DNA repair. So it is naturally abundant in all water, oceans especially. But the farther you get away from the poles, the higher the concentrations of deuterium because of evaporation. So if you live near the equator, it's more likely that your water source, if you're drinking it from the ground, is going to have higher concentrations of deuterium. And you really shouldn't pass a certain number in parts per million in terms of ingestion, because you can get cancer and shit. So I've been reading up on this, and I'm like, and this goes back to what you were saying before. I find it very bizarro world that most people accept as normal being sick all the time. Do you find that really messed up? Like, why do people think it's normal to be sick all the time? Why do people think it's normal for kids to get cancer? That shit ain't normal. That's a defect due to pollution. And we should really figure out, instead of, just saying, oh, smoking causes cancer. Maybe we should find out what else could be causing cancer. Like maybe there's a lot of deuterium in the water supply. I don't know. So I'm looking into that now, and I'm finding it quite fascinating. Fascinating to the point where I'm thinking maybe I should buy deuterium depleted water, because you can buy it. Like you can deplete water or reduce the parts per million of the deuterium in water using this big machine. You know, you don't really want to have it in your house. It's not like a water filter or anything. But yeah, I don't know. So Stephanie drinks. She buys it and she drinks it. She's a genius. She's a happy soul. It's not doing her any harm. And so, yeah, I've been thinking about it. And then I watched this documentary, which went a little bit too far for me, but it was saying that these lizard people. Why is it always about the stupid lizard people? These lizard people came and they planted the deuterium into the water to poison or to make the humans not able to be as elevated or profound or functioning as they could be, so that they could extract the deuterium and make a free energy source. It was a little bit sci-fi, but still, nonetheless, who cares, right? It's entertaining. And it got me thinking about, like, okay, you know, there are lots of elements all over the planet. We have rocks and minerals and we have, you know, lots of atoms and stuff. And like, where did it come from? Okay, well, the planet formed because it was this distance from this ball of gas, and that formed because of this explosion that we called the, you know what I mean? So it goes right back to what you were just saying. And I'm like, but I don't believe in the Big Bang. So what the hell? I don't know. It's like every time I try and figure anything out, it's just a stupid circle. And I'm like, screw it, you know. One day I'll either know the answers or I won't. And I don't know.
But isn't that the truth of life? Like most things will never be actually figured out. Like we have to understand, like everything's a theory, right? It's all theories.
Yeah.
People before us had theories, and people before them had theories, and everybody else before them have theories. And maybe our theory on how weather works or what is weather is closer to some type of truth than the people that, you know, the Greeks who thought they were like the god of thunder and the god of water, and because, you know, some god was upset, that's why it's thundering. Yeah, maybe we might be closer, but our theory can be looked at as primitive as much as their theory can be looked at as primitive, maybe in another 100 years or maybe in another 1,000 years or whatever it may be. And so it's like, it's all just theories. Like to me, that's why anybody who says they know things, that's why I've even throughout the years, I've been very cautious with using the word truth, because I'm like, you know, oh, you're spreading truth. I love your podcast. I'm like, kind of. I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck truth is. I'm just
asking questions, man.
You know, I'm like, you know, there's certain things that I'm much more confident in saying are truthful. You know, if I say, hey, I think Big Pharma is selling you a bad product, you know, I feel much more confident saying that's probably the truth. But there's a lot of things that, you know, are just questions, and, you know, you observe things and you question things. And that's why anybody who can't be, you know, it's like, who said it? Like, I'd rather have questions. What is that? I'd rather have answers that you can't question, or no, I'd rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned. And I almost messed that one up, but yeah. And it's so true. Like you should question everything. And, you know, too often like even my kids, for example, I find myself like having to pump the brakes so many times because they come to me for answers. Right. And I answer, and then I'm like, let me make sure I give them a well, you know, detailed answer. And I also like add, but I'm not certain, and my ideas may change. And, you know, because I'm the adult in your life, you assume that I must have all the answers, but know that every adult is just giving you their opinion. You know, they're not certain, and there is no there is nothing that can't be questioned. There is nothing that there isn't an alternative view. I mean, you look at every accepted philosophy, worldview, whatever it may be, you could find, and they're probably suppressed, and it always makes me wonder, why were they suppressed? There's always a person in that field that had a alternative view, somebody who said that was wrong, like Peter Duesberg is one that comes to mind in regards to his theory on AIDS and HIV, this and he got demonized, and he got Fauci hated him, your boy Kerry Mullis was a huge fan of his and defended him, and to me, the idea that somebody can't question something is absolutely insanity, and only one, for me personally, because I'm such a curious person. I love the forbidden fruit. Like, what should I be listening to? Let me listen to it. Oh, what should I be reading? Let me read that. Why is this thinker banned? I want to know his thoughts.
Exactly. Obviously, too, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's where there is an incentive to hide something, I dig it up with ferocity. If you tell me not to go up, I'm going to go up, It's like, why wouldn't I? Yeah, I know. It's just so bizarre how, you said earlier about how easy it was to brainwash everyone, and they really are. People really are brainwashed. How many times has it happened before? How many similarities, like how many times is history repeating itself? How many times have we in the past, like, really developed sensational technologies and we don't know what they were? Like, we still don't know what the frickin' pyramids,
still very much debated. The placebo effect, we still don't understand exactly. I mean, there's no real science explanation on why or how that works. Are you familiar with Graham Hancock? I'm sure you are, right? Yeah, I mean, Graham Hancock, I remember the first time I got exposed to him in the early days of the Joe Rogan podcast, and he's one of the people on my bucket list that I'm like still dying to have on one day. And every time I contact him, it just happens to be like bad timing. He's traveling or he's taking breaks from interviews or whatever. But at one point, I will have him on. Even my theme song to my podcast, if you listen to the version that's not the intro, and you go on iTunes, he's and that song probably came out, I don't know, like a long time ago. It was way before the podcast. The theme song called The Ripple Effect. I sample Graham Hancock in there because I thought he was so important as a thinker and as somebody who went against the grain. Like, because we have this idea, right, that we have like civilization, there's a start line, and there's a finish line, and we're somewhere in the middle. We don't know where we are, but we're somewhere in the middle. And so I'm like, okay, that's a pretty easy concept, right? You look at throughout history, it's like we progress. And then this is why I love people like, like I've mentioned to you, like Tom Cowens and Graham Hancock, anybody who just basically throws a fucking curveball on everything. The way
they're so much more interesting to listen to. It's like, who cares if they're like saying stuff that you don't agree with or that nobody else thinks is true? Who cares? It's still interesting. I find, it's funny. Yeah, I'm such a different person than I used to be. I hope everyone gets to like grow up to the point where they really change who they used to be, because it's a really interesting process. This David Icke fellow, who I was on a call with the other day, which is really funny. I mean, 2 or 3 years ago, he was like, the quackpot lizard guy, like I didn't take him seriously. I thought, he wasn't a serious fellow. But then I was like, self-questioning. I'm like, what the hell am I basing that on? I've never even listened to him speak. How the hell can I know that? So then I started listening to him speak, and I'm like, well, he's very calm and rational, and what he says is cogent, and he's not hurting anyone. And the thing that really caught me, and really kind of turned my view on just him as a person, was when he said, it was a documentary of his life story and the process he went through of being like really, really, really made fun of for what he was saying to being like really followed. And he said the moment his whole life changed was when he really stopped giving a crap what anybody thought, like literally about even the weirdest shit that he says about the lizard people. And he tells these stories as if they're like historical accounts or visual accounts of something he's seen. It's quite, he's really fascinating to me now. And it's like, now I find like, if there's something new, like if he's going to be speaking, I want to hear what he's going to say, especially in these times, because a lot of what he's said, his so-called predictions, are actually really lining up with what we're experiencing right now. And so it's like really hard not to take into account what he's saying as perhaps being not only valid, but true, if we want to use that word. But yeah, it's so funny how, you know, it all comes from a place of humbleness. And that's the thing about these psychos that I really dislike. I mean, liars and cowards are my two most loathed types of people. But like these so-called fact checkers and the predators that are coming after me and all the other, you know, people who are, you know, trying to present data basically in this COVID crap, they have no humbleness. They have no integrity. And if you're categorical in what you're like claiming, like you're an anti-vaxxer, you know, there's like, you know what I mean? There's like no humbleness. There's no suspension of the possibility that they might be wrong. There's no listening like to what another person is actually saying, rather than, you know, what you're trying to lure out of them so that you can get a good story that aligns with the narrative. I'll give you a good example. I want to get this out here too. Robert Malone has, you know, he has a Substack, yeah. Yeah, so he wrote a piece on a New York Times author, I believe, who recently wrote a hit piece on him. It's really sad. He invited this person into his home, the home of him and his wife, you know, where he raises his horses. He probably was delightful and they had a good meal, and you know, he was offering all kinds of information, personal, professional, background, da, da, da. Anyway, he wrote this up in a Substack because it turned out that this person was just a predator, and they turned everything he said into something else, and basically just wrote a bunch of lies, falsehoods. Really, like Robert's really good at going 1, 2, 3 through the steps. This is what he said. This is what the truth is. This is what they said. This is what the truth is. He's really good at that because that's, you know, when you do peer review, that's kind of the process. You have a methodology that you have to go through. And now he's actually given them 30 days. He hired a lawyer to do a full retraction of this. Anyway, I won't go into that, but it's like, you can't be that person writing these lies about others if you don't have any humbleness inside, if you don't have like some kind of authenticity or integrity. It's like you have to come from like yeah, I don't know what a better word is, a humble place. Like, let's look each other in the eye and have a conversation and decide for ourselves if this person is, you know, being forthcoming, kind, you know, all those things, you know, assessments of people so that you can kind of gauge what they're saying better. You know what I mean? Am I making any sense?
Oh,
like you can kind of tell if someone is someone you can trust because of the way that they talk and their approach to communication as well. It's like, I think the reason I'm talking about this right now is because I have been talking about this to a lot of people who give me feedback. A lot of people, their reply to anything I write about the predators, doing these hit pieces. I wrote a Substack about the hit piece and how to recognize one. It bothered me so much because I didn't know what it was before, right? And until you have that done to you, you can't really know how it feels. It feels really bad, and you can never figure out why, because you didn't do anything wrong, but you still feel horrible for no reason. It's really weird. So most people's response to that, and they write to me, like hundreds of people, and they're like, oh, just ignore them. Just ignore them. Don't use your energy. Don't waste your time. And although that's very good passive advice, it's not good advice. And I'll tell you why. In the case where I'll give a specific example. There's this particular predator that sends me emails about, it's about my myocarditis paper that's still in litigation that I wrote with Peter. And so they've been developing, I don't know how else to say it, this hit piece on me for months. And every now and then they'll send me a new email saying, well, we've got another person, willing to stand up for the fact that you're an anti-vaxxer and that you're spreading misinformation and all this crap, And so it's like, that's the kind of thing you can't just say, I just ignore, no time. Because if you don't respond to something like that with writing, then a non-reply basically means that they can write whatever they want and then say that you didn't reply, which is like an admission of whatever, you know what I mean? So it's like, you can't ignore it. And just like Robert did, like that is the best way to deal with anyone who's coming from a place of non-humbleness. So like, again, it circles back to like everything. It's like, if people would just like assume their role as who they are, as some kind of integral being, I don't even care if that means you're a shithead. I'd rather be around an authentic shithead than someone who's faking. If you know what I mean. I don't know. It's, people, man, I can't figure them out.
I think, you're making a lot of good points. I think that's one of the reasons why people liked Trump. It's like, okay. Because I think it's like, even the people who like, yeah, he has his flaws, at least I know what I'm getting. Like, and honestly, in my personal life, I'm the same way. Like, I'd rather have somebody who is rough around the edges, and it's like, okay, at least I know who they are. I'd rather have one of those people as a friend than one of those chameleons that are just blending into their environment, and you don't really ever know what they think or what they say behind your back or how they feel. So I think that's the issue. In regards to, David Icke, this show hopefully very soon will be on his platform, Iconic, which is his platform. I have a very similar experience with David Icke. I've talked to his sons a bunch. I've talked to Richard Willett, who is one of the documentary filmmakers and also, one of the podcasters and filmmakers that work for David. And they're all super, super nice. And regardless if you agree with them or not, they should have the right to say it, right? And they should have.
Of course they should. Like, Jesus, like I said, who are they hurting? This is what I don't get about censorship. It's like, even if somebody is like got 10 million people listening to them and they're saying, we are, the children of a lizard species that came from another planet. Like, who cares? Is it hurting anyone? No. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But I don't get how anyone could ever think that it would work to try and suppress like something that is kind of inherent in us, because it's just going to boil over one day, man. Like, it never works. Fraud never works.
Well, I don't know. I think evil exists, but I also think, obviously, if evil exists, pure evil exists, and pure good exists. And I think a lot of people, that's why you can't censor the truth, because, and here I go using that word, but when during the last couple of years, people like yourself, people like Del Bigtree, people like Whitney Webb, Ryan from Last American Vagabond, James Corbett. I mean, you can go down the list. Jason Burmis. I mean, there's been so many people that were willing to get censored, were willing to lose their YouTube channels, willing to, have hit pieces written on them, all to get the truth out. They didn't care. They're like, all those sacrifices were worth trying to get this information out there and trying to, not to make it bigger than it really was, but maybe it's the right way of saying they were all trying to save humanity. And in that process, we knew that it would be a fight and there would be some sacrifices that had to be made. And the same, it's one of those things that, speaking of like philosophy, like, the Republic and the idea of a noble lie, I've kind of been juggling with this idea of like, the evil, we're the good team and when we're fighting against the evil, like, I'm curious if they believe like all the lies are noble lies, like it's for the greater good of like them understanding the path that humanity should be taking, and then molding it or pushing us in that direction is all for the greater good. And we believe, that it's not for the greater good, that what we're doing is for the greater good. And that's, even those things I think should be questioned, this idea of like, okay, why am I so motivated to push back? What, all this stuff. But I think the spiritual battle does exist. And a lot of people throughout the last couple of years felt like this, even somebody like myself, who's not religious, I felt like it was a spiritual battle. Like, I felt like we truly were fighting against evil, because the people that you're talking about that are writing hit pieces, knowingly lying, knowingly misrepresenting people, they're either evil because they know what they're doing, or they subscribe to this noble lie of like, okay, even though I'm lying about this person, I feel like they're the enemy. They're the ones who need to be suppressed. So I'm lying for the greater good of suppressing a somebody who should be suppressed, somebody who is spreading information that I don't agree with. And I think a lot of us do that type of justification in our heads sometimes, where we do something and we justify it because of this or because of that. But I think some people do justify it, and I think some people are literally just pure evil, where they truly know they can harm somebody, and yet it affects them emotionally not at all. They feel no guilt because of it. They don't, and I just, those type of people I can't relate to. I don't understand. I am so far from that type of logical, just looking at the world, that the logic they use to look at the world, that I the only way I can understand it is almost just labeling it as evil. And it's just like, I mean, to think about Pfizer, think about these big companies that without a doubt must have known, many of them, that when they're trying to get 5-year-olds to get vaccinated, when they're trying to get 5-month-olds to get vaccinated, like, they know there's going to be some harm done. And either one, like I said, they're either justifying it in their head because they've convinced themselves that the risk of the vaccine is less than the risk of COVID, or two, they absolutely know that what they're doing is bad, but they're looking at profit and money and power, and they're so drunk with all that they just want to continue getting more of it. So, but trying to understand those people, I think, is a fascinating conversation, and really something that I think is interesting to try to fight back. Like, why are they doing it? What's their motivations? And and I think usually people don't go that deep into trying to understand the enemy.
Yeah, I think it's a lot more in our species. I think there are a lot more stupid people than evil people. And I'd much rather go up against an evil person. Wait, no, I'd much rather go up against a stupid person. Sorry, I got that confused. Because you can outsmart a stupid person, but evil is harder. And I think all of these. I mean, I'll tell you something, man. When you're sitting across from like these FDA hearings, I've done 3 of them now, and I also had a private call with 2 FDA representatives, which with oh, I didn't tell you this, with 5, I think it was 5 injection injured people. One of them was Maddie DeGaray's mom. And I don't know what happened to me, but I think what happened to me was very normal. I broke down before I was able to give my presentation to them. Like Ricky, I broke down. Like I couldn't say my name. I was like, but like I was fucking broken. I came after the 5 injured people spoke, and something happened to me. It never happened to me before, and it was a fucking Zoom call, and Robert was there, and I broke down. And then I had to like gather my strength and pull my ass together and like deliver my speech, because I only had 15 minutes. And then, you kind of try and make eye contact with these people that you're trying to have listen to you or hear you, maybe is a better way to say it. And they're just like stonewall, like there's nothing there, there's nothing there. It's like dead eyes. And one of the people on the call that I know, she said that they seemed to pause when they saw my breakdown, which they both say, that was huge, Jess. Like that was huge. I didn't see it, but everybody else said, yeah, you did something to them that day. Like something happened inside of them, even though they were still like stone walls. But these people in these regulatory body organizations that are meant to be the stopgap between these evil big pharma morons and the humans, they're filled with these people who they're just not there. It's really weird. I'm like, okay, well, I know that there are psyops, and I know that they do, like humans do really bad fucking shit to each other, really bad, like stuff that most people probably wouldn't even be able to conceive of. So who knows what's going on that we don't know about all the time, every day. So it's like, sometimes I think maybe something in their neurochemistry is actually altered such that they don't have empathy. Like maybe they are psychopaths. Maybe they were actually picked from a young age and kind of, created to be non-empathetic beings, such that they could fulfill this role easily and not kind of veer from that pathway because of an emotional attachment to other beings. That makes the most sense to me, because like you can't get through to these people. You can't. It's like the difference between like a cop, like an RCMP officer who has a family, who's like a good man, and these weird ass people, they fly in from the UN who are like, they're programmed not to answer you, and they're violent and on command, and they're like dogs, right? So it's kind of like the difference between those two kinds of people. There's something different about the programmed. Do you know what I mean? It's like something is lost in here. Like, I don't know. I try not to think about it too much because it's pretty disturbing, but yeah. Ricky, I have about 5 more minutes and then I have to go.
Yeah, we can, well, that was a great, I think a great little, I thought to and story for people to ponder on, because I think that is fascinating. And I find myself sometimes looking at these people, like, I was talking about, the CEO of, or the president of Pfizer was on the Lex Fridman.
You know that he's Jewish?
Yeah.
So is Walensky. I did not know this until today. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Hey, but so is Henry Kissinger, and so so it's he was on the Lex Fridman show, and when you see him lie, and he's lying and deceiving, and he has zero issue with it. Again, I don't understand it. I don't. It's so.
That's because you're an empathetic being.
Yeah, and most of us, I think, are, and
Yep.
and there's plenty of people who've done very good research, and I think there's even been articles and books written about how we've created kind of a system that rewards psychopathic people, and that's why most CEOs and most presidents of big corporations have psychopathic.
Do you know the rate on actual psychopaths walking among us?
No, I don't.
Don't quote me on this, but it's something staggering. I watch a lot of like neuro stuff as much as I can. It's something like 1 in 100 people are psychopaths, like clinically.
Wow.
It's a really, 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 really high number. And it's like the reason why most people aren't aware that, you know, at least maybe one person they see in a large city is a psychopath every day is because it's not what people think. Psychopathy is not what people think. So like, anyway, that's a good point to leave on. Look into that, people. Really fascinating subject, this whole brain like thing. Wow. And look up schizophrenia too. That is fascinating. Watch every doco on that stuff, man. That is so interesting to me. It's all together.
It all intertwines. And that's why philosophy is so important to me, because it's all like the birth of philosophy was trying to understand ourselves and the world around us. And basically that's when you look into any of these topics, that's basically what you're attempting to do, is trying to better understand ourselves or the world around us. I mean, most people who go the university for psychology, that's typically why, because they're trying to better understand themselves. That's why a lot of them fail. They have such a high rate of failure, and a lot of them have their own issues. I know people in my personal life who studied psychology, and I'm like, you have a lot of your own fucking issues. I can't believe you're trying to help people with their issues. And then it makes sense, because you're like, okay, the reason why you're in this field was because you were attempting to resolve your issues and better understand your issues. So yeah, it's all intertwined. So for people listening, I mean, great interview on the High Wired, people. If you haven't checked it out, Jessica was on there recently.
Oh, yeah.
Check out that interview, and let people know where they can find that interview and all your interviews. And I know you talked about your recent speech you did. I believe you put it on YouTube also. It's on your Substack. It's also on your YouTube channel, which I'll put in the show description. But let them know your website, any things you have around the corner that people might want to look out for, and anything else.
Yeah, okay, so there's my Substack, just car.substack.com. And I have posted my own version of the VRBPAC FDA hearing speech that I gave. Basically, I just called out conflicts of interest. One of the voting members on the panel that we spoke to was very financially conflicted. You can listen to my speech and then go to the VRBPAC website to find out. It's atrocious what's going on. People need to know this shit. You can also check out my website, Jessica's Universe, where all my interviews are and publications. Coming up on the 10th, the Defeat the Mandates rally is going on in LA, and I'm going to be speaking, but it's a pre-recorded video that I made, but it's a good speech, pretty powerful, I guess. And I have a paper that I'm desperately trying to finish, co-authoring with Peter. It's a second myocarditis paper. So yeah, you look for that, because it's been a while since I got anything published, and I feel a little bit antsy about that. So yeah, that's about it for now.
And in regards to social media, I mean, well, Substack's kind of like your social media, because the same thoughts on Facebook or Twitter, you kind of do it on your Substack, which is pretty cool. But you're still on Float, and I think that's probably the only one that I'm aware of that you're on. Are you on Getter or any of the other ones?
No, I never opened Float. I forgot it exists. So like I'm not on any social media, and I'm really glad, because I'm in a lot of groups in like nerd groups on Telegram and even WhatsApp, and it's too much for me already. It's like I can't keep up with all the sharing, and I don't know.
The same way. I mean, the social media platforms, a lot of it's just for people who do follow me there. If people happen to be on those platforms, they can follow me, and I share just things that I'm doing. Like, okay, here's a new episode. Here's this. Here's that. You know, here's an interesting article. But I can't spend that much time on any of them, really, just kind of going through information or going through my feed. It's just, there's limited time, and spending some time in the now and not constantly being distracted, I think is a good exercise from time to time. So I think some people will just spend all day just going through information. I'm like, you're not even giving yourself any time to consume
process.
Yeah, which I've done in the past, where I'm just like, consuming, and I'm like, I don't remember anything because I just try to consume way too much all at once. So but thank you so much, Jessica. There's nobody else I'd rather have on my 400th episode.
Yay, 400! Woo! And here's to another 400.
Yeah, let's hope so. So that's the goal. Just this show has become therapy. So it's I grow from it, and hopefully the listeners get the same type of experience from listening to it. So, and I know you're a fan favorite, so people will be happy to see you're on the 400th episode, and keep up the great work. And hopefully we talk again in the near future.
Yeah, anytime. And I keep thinking of amazing people to ask if you want to like do another 3 people episode. Like, the last time we spoke, we were with Pierre, right? Pierre Corey.
I believe so. Yeah. Which was, people loved, because I think they got to see
another
side of him, and it was fun. It was fun. There's some good information, but there was also because I think the human behind, like you were talking about, like connecting with people, seeing the human behind the information and the perspectives and their views is really important, because you humanize people. When you humanize people, you don't see them as this anti-vaxxer, weirdo, or same thing with David Icke, right? Like, it's really easy to kind of just like assume he's the headlines that I read,
right?
Like, oh, he's this reptilian conspiracy theorist. And then when you get to know his views on many other topics and many different things, and you get to know his backstory and all that type of stuff, then you're
it always comes back to you. Like that's what I'm learning as I age. It has nothing to do with what anyone else does or says. It's all on me. It's like, if I'm too ignorant or arrogant to like even listen to what another human being is saying, then I have a problem. They don't have a problem. Well, so that's something everybody needs to remember.
And it reminds me of a quote I just tweeted a couple of days ago that I think it's fascinating, but it's the quote, things aren't as they are as we are. And it's true. Like, everything kind of starts with us, and the way things are is really based on our perspectives and our views and our life experiences and journeys that will shape the way we look at things. So looking in before you look out, I think it is very important. So but yeah, that's what I love about these conversations, and I think that's what makes you such a unique individual. You're so willing to I mean, your expertise and your resume, for you to come on a show with Dr. Tom Cowan and even just explore his ideas, to me, I think is awesome, and says a lot about you, that the fact that nothing is off the table in regards to like, looking into it and just being curious about somebody's thoughts and ideas.
Yeah, well, he's so smart. And I got to tell you, I don't think a day goes by that I don't think about something he said in that conversation, because, I'm always thinking about biology and and how things work. And it's like, I actually do go through this thought process. I'm like, how does this align with what he was saying and how he thinks the world works? Because if the thought that I'm developing now doesn't align with every possibility that I've heard, then it's not complete. I'm not saying it'll ever be complete, but it's incomplete if I'm not accounting for all like possible things that at least that I've heard up to this point. So yeah, no, that was great. I'd like to have another one with him if he's willing.
Well, if you're looking for a really fascinating conversation with Dr. Tom Cowan, he always has them with Ben Greenfield, and he was recently on the Ben Greenfield podcast. Again, Ben Greenfield is super interesting and super fascinating, and always ends up. I got exposed to Dr. Tom Cowan years and years ago from the Ben Greenfield show, and he's one of those guys, very smart, very book smart in regards to understanding the basics of science and biology and all that stuff. but he's also open, like yourself, to all these alternative perspectives, and that's why he's willing to have somebody on like Dr. Tom Cowan, and they're also friendly enough where Ben Greenfield feels comfortable kind of pushing back and having Tom kind of go deeper into his ideas and perspectives. So those are some of the best interviews he's done, even though he's been on my show a few times. I'm not nearly as smart as Ben Greenfield, so I can't really extract the most out of Tom like Ben can. But he's done like specific interviews on like the heart and on vaccines and cancer and tons of different stuff throughout the years with Dr. Tom Cowan. So yeah, I mean, but like I said, I think it says a lot about your willingness to not just dismiss somebody, but let me look into their ideas and then, come to a conclusion, which I think the world needs more of, instead of just taking the experts' opinion and saying that that's gospel. It's like, look into people who disagree with you as much as you look into people who agree with you. So but thank you so much, Jessica. I know I'm holding you up because I don't know when to shut up, but thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your night, and thanks again for taking time out of your very busy schedule to chat, as always. And feel free to recommend anybody you want. I always love having these conversations, and anybody you find fascinating, I'm sure I'll find equally as fascinating.
Yeah, you will. All right, I have someone in mind, so I'll be in touch by email soon. We'll make it happen again.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica. Take care.
Bye, love you.
See ya.